Welcome to the third of a three-part introduction to IBM Planning Analytics. In this section, we will look at the Workspace. The Workspace provides a single, easy-to-use, web-based environment for all user roles. That includes administration, monitoring, planning, reporting, or analysis. After a brief overview, we will look at data entry, reporting and analysis, and assembling professional-looking workspaces for end-user consumption. The best way to think of a workspace is that it is the single place where you go to do your work. Your workspace can either be centrally defined and managed, available with full flexibility and capabilities, or somewhere in between. It is all driven by your role and security. In this example, a cost center manager is working with a centrally defined capital planning template. The end user is invited to enter some key drivers. In this example, the user makes an adjustment to the in-service date for an asset. The depreciation, balance sheet, and cash impacts of any changes are immediately available, including the impact on the full income statement. Note the use of embedded visualizations to help the user understand the impact and degree of the changes. Let's start working on a blank workspace. Existing planning analytics objects may be referenced using natural language queries. Simply type in your command at the top. Remember the data entry object from Excel in part 2. I can even ask the system questions like, what is the office budget for Q3 by organization? The system will automatically find the answer and present me with the result. I don't need to understand the underlying data structures. I just ask the question. See, it's actually very easy. Finally, I can also simply drag and drop the objects from the tree on the left-hand side. This object was also created in Excel in part 2. Let's focus on data entry. First, we are going to set up a personal sandbox where the user can test out various outcomes prior to committing the changes to the base plan. Unlike some other solutions, this can be performed by the end user rather than having to rely on the administrator. We are going to sync up the three views so that they always show the same sandbox. The user can easily navigate up and down the hierarchies using expand and collapse. Then slice and dice the view using simple drag and drop gestures, just like using a spreadsheet pivot table. Let's try quarters in the columns, now versions nested within the quarters, now versions on their own. Finally, we will focus on the analysis of office costs for July. Since office costs are planned centrally, it makes sense to update them by region. Note that when I make a change to a value, the other impacted views are shown in blue. This concept extends to all planning modules that are linked. For example, headcount, to income statement, to balance sheet, to cash flow. The user can immediately see the impact of their changes, helping them to quickly understand the overall financial picture. I just realized that I made a mistake. No problem. I will undo the data change and then apply the correct value. Finally, I will compare my new best case sandbox against the existing planning base and a couple of others that I was evaluating also, aggressive and conservative. I decide that the best case sandbox is the most appropriate for my business, so I commit it to the base, as I am now happy for my executives to see my final plan. We are now going to enter the plan for California. Note the use of shortcut keys to speed up data entry and reduce errors. I can also use the data spreading wizard to guide me through the process. In this case, bonus is going to be 10% of salary costs. Travel costs follow a 4-4-5 profile. So I simply type in the profile and then enter the yearly plan number into the annual total. The system automatically spreads the number back to the months on a pro rata basis. I then increase the total by 10%. Finally, my manager asked me to cut the total plan for my region by 10%. I decide to cut everything on a pro rata basis, but of course salary and bonus are fixed costs, so I place a hold on those items first. Now let's focus on reporting and analysis. A really important feature when you have lots of data is zero suppression. Typically, not every GL account or product will be populated with numbers, so it's important to change the view so that only products or GL accounts with non-zero values are shown. This allows me to quickly focus on what is important and cut down on needless scrolling and filtering. Snap commands allow you to very quickly type in a command to perform an end-user gesture. Here we are going to change the focus from California to Oregon and then drill into Q1 to view the supporting detail. I often receive a list of products in Excel that I need to investigate. I can simply copy the product code from Excel into the dialog to find the product that I am interested in. Another simple example of Excel integration. I will now undo the last two changes to get back to my starting point. The owner of the model did not provide a roll-up for the first half of the year. No problem. I can simply add one. Many other systems do not allow the end user to perform end user calculations or roll-ups. The administrator has to create them on your behalf, thus slowing down and limiting the analysis process, or forcing me to perform offline analysis. I'm going to add a second calculation, percentage of total. This helps me understand the relative contribution of each expense item to my overall expense plan. Finally, the ranking feature allows me to show the top 2 expense items. This is a great feature as it helps me focus on the largest items that are driving my expense. This means that I am not only more productive, but my focus on the major drivers means that my forecast is more accurate. Now let's assemble a workspace to review my organization's results. Firstly, I'm going to replace the rows with my organization dimension. Then swap the version dimension into the columns. Notice that I focused on the H1 calculation that we created earlier. Now I'm going to copy the widget twice so that we can have 3 different views of the same data. The first widget will show a map. The second a heat map which shows expense category by state. And the third will be a simple actual versus budget variance analysis by state. Now we will tear off the version dimension selector from one of the widgets to create a workbook level filter. I will now configure the synchronization for the top 2 visualizations so that they listen to this filter. I do not want to synchronize the third widget as I want both budget and actual to be shown at all times for my variance analysis. Now I will remove the headers. Finally, to help me easily spot negative variances, I'm going to add conditional formatting to my variance analysis. Negative variances are now shown in red. Within a few seconds of creating my workspace, I have now some great insights into my data. Clearly, Washington and Virginia had the highest expenses in the first half of the year. Salary was the largest expense across all states, followed by travel costs. Finally, the Eastern region was under budget, while the Western region was over budget. That concludes the third of this three-part introduction to IBM Planning Analytics. This series was designed to show the ease of use of IBM Planning Analytics and how its power and end-user engagement can drive unique insights and business performance in your organization.